I apologize, folks. We're trying to figure out a way to get quorum, but at a minimum, I think we'll probably have the hearing. So just give us a couple more minutes to figure this out. go ahead and call the meeting to order at 7:25. Our first order of business is the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you bow your heads with me, please. Dear God, we pray that you will bless and guide us through this meeting. Help us have productive discussions that will broaden our perspectives. Help us to resolve any disputes gracefully and find principles that we may agree on. Help us generate good plans that are practical, sustainable, and easily implemented. Guide us towards the best way to take action to accomplish our goals. In your name we pray. Amen. If you join me with the pledge to the U.S. and then the Texas flag. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is citizen comments. However, I will caution that if you're here for the public hearing to talk about item 5.1, we'll hold those comments until we get to item 5.1. So outside of that, do I have any public comments tonight? Okay. So then I'll move on to item 4.1, September 9th, regular planning and zoning meeting minutes. Did you all have a chance to look at those? And if there are no changes, can I get a motion, please?
So I make a motion that we approve 4.1 the non-September minutes as provided.
I second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And then item 4.2, September 16th, regular planning and zoning commission meeting minutes. Did you both have a chance to take a look at those? And are there any
Yes.
comments? Okay. If there's no comments, can I get a motion?
I make a motion to approve the September 16th minutes, item 4.2 on the agenda as provided.
I second that motion.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you. With that, we'll move on to item 5.1, a public hearing. A public hearing to consider the application of MC Trilogy Texas LLC, requesting a change in zoning from A agricultural to PD Planned Development District for 2 tracts of property. Tract 1 is 109.907 acres located north of FM 550 and generally east of Pullen Road. And Tract 2, 69.143 acres located north of FM 550 and west of Pullen Road. Further described as County ID numbers 12959 and 12960. Zoning of the subject property will amend the official zoning map of the city of McLendon-Chisholm. So I am calling the public hearing open at 7:28. I'll start with, I think we had 2 registered speakers for the public hearing, and then we'll open it up for other comments. So I'll start with Mr. Ron Leroy. Is that correct? Okay. Please state your name and your address for the record, and then there you go.
How about now?
That's perfect. Thank you, sir.
Okay, so Ron LaRue at 3401 West FM 550. I'm directly across from the end of Pullen, across the road on this, I don't know what side that is. Would you call that what? Okay, south side of 550. So these 2 planned developments would be like outside my front door to the left and to the right. And then I'm here with my neighbor, Jared Kennedy, who lives directly next door to me. So we have the Hodges old place that we split in half. And so we're here more for learning about what the plans are, what the infrastructure changes would be, because this is like country roads out here. There's already, like when we pull out of our driveways, people come up over those hills, and it's already a hazard for us. I can speak for myself and my family, and probably Jared's as well. When we pull out, we have to roll our windows down and really be cautious about what's coming over those hills. So, there's a traffic concern. There's also other concerns related to whether or not, since we're in the ETJ and not really in McLendon-Chisholm or Heath, we're in Rockwall County, in terms of what the plans are looking forward as far as acquiring our properties into the city of McLendon-Chisholm. So anything that we can address in that terms, and then just in general learning what the plan is, what the developer is looking for in that roughly 179 acres approximately directly across from us. We're concerned about property values, obviously, if they're high-density homes and small lots. So that's all I've got to say. Again, Ron LaRue, and thank you very much for serving here on the P&Z committee, and thank you, staff.
Thank you, sir, and thank you for your patience tonight. Okay, I will move on to the second registered speaker I have, which is Jared Kennedy.
I'm Jared Kennedy, and I live at 3397 West FM 550, next to Ron LaRue here. And, we just wanted to hear more about what's going on. That's right out your front door. Is it right there on 550? Is it north down 550, a quarter mile or half a mile? What's the status with that? And I'd agree with what Ron said, that the traffic, that's the one disadvantage to living at the properties that we have. It's real dangerous, that people, get right up on you, and you can't turn in your driveway. Coming out of the driveway, that's the top of a hill where there's a blind spot both ways, and then you got pulling right across the way too, where you're looking left, right, but somebody else whips out, doesn't even stop at the stop sign. So then what Ron said, what type of homes are these? What type of, lots? What kind of acreage? What's it going to do to home values? And, I looked to move out here for like 5 years. If I wanted to move to Heath, I would have moved to Heath. If I wanted to move to McLendon, would have moved to McLendon. And we're in the county. And don't see how we would be directly affected as far as, rezoning, wherever this development is, but what happens to us across the street. So, cool. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, do we have anyone else that would like to speak? Go ahead. Just please speak your name and address for the record before you start.
Yes, ma'am. Misty Ventura, 9406 Biscayne Boulevard, Dallas, Texas, 75218, on behalf of the property owner. Are we going to have a staff report? As the applicant, I would like to reserve my comments until after the staff report, if the commissioner's pleasure.
Yeah, I'm okay
Thank
with that.
you.
Yeah. Okay. Is there anyone else?
Just so the commissioners know, this is the development team, Sam Moto on behalf of Huffines, and Matt Atkins, the engineer on the project. So we are all three here on behalf of the property owner and the applicant.
Thank you so much. Okay. With that, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing at 7:33 p.m. Okay. So we will move on to item 6.1, which is discussion and action regarding approval of the application of MC Trilogy Texas as described previously. And there are attachments in our package for the commissioners, but I'll ask Mr. Coker to give us some overview of the staff report, please. That's 109 acres. I'm sorry, can you show me where those are, the 2 points of access? Is it in my plan?
It's in your packet.
I did look at it. That's their main entrance, right? I think that the property skirts the edge of that.
So these are all 1 acre lots on this. That helps. It's
So-
hard to see on something tiny.
Well, and I agree with you. In fact, I had to ask the applicant to give me some better graphics so that I could actually blow them up and see what it says. But in all, the city council has adopted a development agreement for the 179 acres that's currently in the city, and then for the 650 acres that's in the ETJ, the green part on this map. Ultimately, it's a multi-step process. The first step to having the annexation of the outstanding rest of the green is adoption of a planned development district for this 179 acres and this concept plan. So I've reviewed this application in the context of our comprehensive plan and in the context of the development agreement that's been adopted by the city council. This application conforms to both the development agreement and the comprehensive plan as adopted. With that, Madam Chair, I'm glad to answer any questions that you might have, or anybody in the audience.
I just want to make sure that the commission understands we are only tonight talking about that 179 acres.
Right.
Not what's in the ETJ. That's correct.
Do we need to make a motion to have discussion, or?
No, yeah, you're in discussion now.
Mine's on. It's that one.
So,
This one, there we go. Okay.
Madam Chair, I have a couple of
What that is.
questions
Sure,
I'd like to address.
go ahead, sir.
So first, Mr. Coker, as we discussed prior, I want to understand Exhibit Echo, Exhibit E, the special regulations, and mostly the edits that are in the line in, line out editing process, and what that represents. What are we acting on within that exhibit?
Okay, that is a copy of a portion of the development agreement that was edited and approved by the city council. Really has no application to what you're considering today, because what you're considering today are the exhibits that lay out the details for the development. Were the commission to recommend approval or not to council, when the ordinance comes out, the only thing that will be in the ordinance will be a planned development district that has the development standards, the requirements, and all the attachments, E, F, G, H, I, J. I think J is the last one, where it actually talks about advertising signs and things like that. But all of that would be included in the planned development district. That will be an ordinance that the city council will consider based on your recommendation and the input from the public.
Okay, but just so I'm clear, and I think more importantly, it's clear to the audience, the edits that are in the document are agreed to by the developer and by the city.
That's correct.
Right.
Okay.
So that's a done deal.
Thank you for asking. I had the same
Yeah.
Okay.
question.
That helps.
All right, good. I have a couple of other questions, specifically, again, within Exhibit E. I realize we're not necessarily approving that, but it would weigh on my decision. Item 14, the turnaround right away, those, and basically the definitions of the size of the cul-de-sac, which are defined predominantly for public safety reasons. It says 40.5 feet, and I believe our subdivision regulations are 45 feet. So
They
that
are,
would be a
and
5-foot variance.
I copied the 40.5 directly out of the development agreement. Was it supposed to be 40.5 or 45?
I didn't know if that was could be a typo, could be any number of
Okay,
concerns.
it's supposed to be 40.5 per the
Okay,
development agreement.
but that's separate from our ordinance.
That's correct. And the planned development district that you're considering today will supersede some portions of our ordinance based on what's included in the development agreement that's been adopted by the council.
So the question I have for staff is from a public safety standpoint, has the fire chief, fire marshal agreed to the reduction in the size of the turnarounds?
I copied the fire chief with the report, but I haven't received any comments back from him.
And I haven't received any comments from him either during the time that I've been here.
Is this setting a precedent then for other areas? I mean, if we go 40.5, what are we gonna do when the next one comes up and says 38.6?
We're gonna say no,
Well, then, why are we saying yes to 40.5?
because the council already did say yes to 40.5.
Well, but they haven't agreed, they haven't, so,
How can,
okay.
Let me say this, that you're considering an application for a plan development district. And irrespective of what the council may or may not do, you should be considering the information that's in front of you and basing your recommendation to the council on the information that you have. And if you think that it conforms with the requirements of the code, you should say yes. If you think that it doesn't conform with the requirements of the code, you should say no, or you should say yes, but we think it ought to be 45 feet rather than 40.5,
So,
that kind of thing.
may I ask why, what was the reasoning to accept a lesser standard?
I was a part of that process, and the council never asked me a question about that. However, let me defer to Matt Atkins, who's the engineer who helped with, or Misty Ventura, who's the attorney for the applicant, and see if they can give you all a better answer than I've got.
Misty Ventura, 9406 Biscayne Boulevard, Dallas, Texas 75218, on behalf of the property owner. With respect to some of the changes to the subdivision regulation rules, which you've pointed out, those were negotiated as part of a master planned community that involved a voluntary annexation of over 570 acres of ETJ property into the city's corporate limits. And so there were compromises made on both sides in order to achieve a win-win objective that included an in-city development with an in-city MUD that would finance all of the infrastructure, both the capital cost to construct those improvements as well as the ongoing operation and maintenance. And because of that collaborative effort and those compromises, we have before you today this application. And as Mr. Coker explained, the purpose of the meeting tonight is to focus on the land use regulations because council has already made the decision on the subdivision regulations. Did that, yeah.
Thank you, that answers the question. I will just, for the record, I don't think we should ever, and I would include in our comments to city council, we should ever compromise on a question of public safety.
Yeah,
There's
was
a
the
reason-
fire chief,
Yeah.
just a minute,
I'm
was
sorry.
the fire chief involved in those negotiations, and did he say that it was okay? Was he asked to be? Why? Why was not the fire chief asked to be in those negotiations?
Matt, do you want to speak to that?
Matt Atkins with T. Nolan Perkins, 825 Waters Creek Boulevard, Suite 301. Yeah, right. I never recite that one. So in our negotiations through this part of it, we negotiated with staff at the time, Lisa Paloma and Mr. Holla and all the staff that was there. We never had a direct conversation with the fire chief, but he was here at all of the meetings when we were having these discussions.
So I might help you because it is a minimum, have a minimum right away, meaning the implication is there would be others that would be larger. It would be an act of goodwill to comply unless there's some specific reason that is lost to us, or hasn't been thoroughly explained, it would be, I would consider an act of goodwill to sustain the 45-foot circles, because at the end of the day, the reason they are set at that level is for emergency vehicles to
Yeah,
be able
public
to
safety.
navigate around the cul-de-sac. So,
I mean, that's a slap in the face, I think, to public safety. I can't believe the fire chief was not included. Why didn't y'all ask him, Mr. Coker?
Well, the fire chief was not an active participant in the development and the negotiations for the developer agreement. He was aware of all the things that were going on because he got all the guidance from Lisa Palumbo, from me, from Misty Ventura. He was informed about this stuff. He just was not a participant at the meetings where we had and negotiated the deals.
And so you, as the negotiator for the city,
No, I was not the negotiator for the city.
who was?
Lisa Palumbo and Mike Hall, the city attorney.
And they agreed to the 40.5?
Well, they
What did
agreed
they
to
get
that,
in
and
return for the 40.5 if it was a negotiated item?
You're asking a question I can't answer. I can tell you this, that the council adopted the developer agreement that includes 40.5 as the.
So this is an
minimum
exercise in
price.
futility for us, then, right?
I think that this is not an exercise in futility.
I mean, if it's set at 40.5,
Well, but I think that Commissioner Kivett has made the point that he thinks that 45 feet would be the better of the two options. And if the commission were to recommend approval subject to turnarounds being 45 feet, that's something you can do.
well, no, the developer would have to agree to that. Do you agree to the 45?
No, you're not negotiating with the developer now.
yeah.
You're-
Uh,
The
Then
only-
then
the only
this is a
person-
moot point.
The only people that can negotiate now with the developer is the city council. What I'm telling you is that the commission needs to take this seriously. I take it seriously. And if you think that there's a piece of the puzzle that doesn't fit the way you think it should fit, you should say so. And I
Well, I
think
just
that
did.
that's when it comes time for a motion. Now, your comments are gonna be reflected in the minutes and the details that the council will get, but my recommendation to the commission is to consider the application, and if you have concerns about it, so state. And if you make a decision to recommend approval, then recommend approval with conditions that you do like many other cases that I bring to you. Almost all of them have conditions that either I recommend or that you add to the things that go on. And if the commission's position is to not approve, then so say so. Because you are a recommending body, and it's not an exercise in futility. This is really an important resource for the council, because you get to hear things that oftentimes they don't get to hear.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
I
Coker.
understand what we need to do.
I would like to speak to the issue of safety, though, because I think it would be remiss if I didn't point out that the 40.5 that was approved by council doesn't create health and safety issues, and it's a standard that communities across Texas use, including neighbors like Rockwall.
Can you cite the specific standard that you're referring to?
So
40.5?
with respect to the 40.5 pavement radius standard that's been the subject of discussion, there are other communities that have adopted that standard, and I believe one of those communities is Rockwall, and I'm happy to provide a pinpoint site, but I don't have it with me at the moment.
I'm just, we're talking about minimal amount, candidly, minimal amount of concrete associated with it. So it's okay. I don't expect, I'm conveying my viewpoint as commissioner. We'll convey our views to the council, and council can take appropriate action on it. So these agreements are difficult, complex, and relationships between developers, homeowners or landowners that are selling their property in the city, specifically we represent the citizens, is based on a complex relationship, right? And it's important to maintain a degree of trust throughout those relationships. That was certainly here when Mr. Huffhines, spoke about that, the importance of his development blending into the community. So although I'm not asking you to go back and do that, we'll convey our message to City Council. I will note that we have a standard for a reason, and it's because we're out here in the country, and emergency vehicle response here is different than in the city of Rockwall, candidly. And we want to make sure that we provide the maximum amount of safety available for our citizens. So it's just a question. It's a question I had, something I saw in the document. I mean, candidly, otherwise I have no major concerns with the document itself, and the application. So I'll yield my time.
I'm good.
Any questions?
No, thank you.
Did you have anything else you wanted to?
No, ma'am, we
Speak about-
support staff's recommendation, and we respectfully request the commission approve the application.
So we have some non-residents of the city that are here that are seeking some information. So I would ask, although it doesn't impact this application, potentially, since we have the team here, you could address some of the questions of infrastructure enhancements associated with Poland. I realize 550 is a state FM, so that falls under a different group. And just to explain, and it's, there may be, the answer is there are none planned that would address some of the questions they had, but I think since they're here, I would ask if you guys could do that. It would be nice.
Again, Ron LaRue, 3401 West FM 550. When it looks like the entrance goes from west to east and crosses roughly in the middle of the pool. And it looks like there's like a traffic circle here. What's that, sir? Okay. This Pullen is a very small road, and it's blacktop. So, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Fine?
Yeah.
So, I have concerns about the amount of traffic coming because it looks as if half of the neighborhood will be on, or not half, maybe a third, and then 2/3 on the other side. And I think what's going to happen is there's going to be so much traffic dumped right into Pullen, and P&Z may already be aware, when you're going down Pullen and trying to get on 205 or coming down to 550, there are some significant safety concerns getting out of there. And more specifically, I'm concerned about our property value, where it looks as if there could be an opportunity to put in red lights at the end of Pullen on 550 because of the amount of traffic that this planned development is going to cause. And it's really going to change the feel of the area in terms of property values, where we have sort of a country estate feel out here now. This is really going to change the look of McLendon-Chisholm and the surrounding area. So I have those concerns. I have also, again, concerns about how structurally Pullen Road can handle this kind of traffic when it's just a narrow blacktop lane. So I respectfully ask our developers to answer those questions, and any P&Z and staff input would be appreciated.
Perhaps I could answer the question of the traffic lights. on any state roadway at the intersection of any roadway, whether that intersects a state roadway or a city street, TxDOT will place traffic signalization when the circumstance warrants it. When the traffic counts and the other conditions of warranting that light exist, the state will put those in. Until the requisite number of those warrants exist, the state will not put it in, and they will not allow the city to put it in. But when it meets their requirements, they will put it in and they will pay for it. But they won't do it in advance of, for example, the traffic counts meeting those requirements.
What you're saying is there would have to be certain number of incidences or a traffic study done?
You know, the state has about 7 different warrants for, and you must meet a certain number of those on the different classifications of state roadways in order for them to put a light in. One out of the 7 or one of those is the traffic counts. And those traffic counts would have to be there before it met that warrant. Not be projected to be there, but actually be there. There's certain other physical characteristics that once that intersection is looked at, they might meet those warrants today, but you have to meet the right number of them. And when they're met, the city can request a study of that intersection. And if it meets the warrants, the state will put it on their list to signalize. And then as funding is approved, it'll come to that particular intersection, and the state will put it in. And that's just how.
It seems kind of counterintuitive, but I understand.
The state would argue that they can't put a traffic light everywhere somebody tells them that they need to.
Right.
So
Well,
it has been frustrating to me many times to have to wait on traffic that I know is coming to count it toward those warrants.
I understand. And to me, again, it goes back to property values in general in the area. You know, a lot of us are in this area because of the larger estate type setting. And when you bring in that much density into an area, it not only causes the traffic, but then when you're having to change the infrastructure to have the lights and to have all of that, then that becomes an issue as well. So I just respectfully ask that you all, I don't know that it's part of your, and maybe it's more council's purview, but you have a comprehensive plan. This sounds as if it fits that comprehensive plan on scale, but then when you start doing this, things start to change. And so I'm not opposed to change. I just don't want it to detrimentally affect the community as a whole. That's my final.
So Ron, if I may, and hopefully I'm not violating any policy issue here. So this is a complex equation of the intersection of county and city and state, right? We're talking about 3 levels of activity. There is a mechanism called the Rockwell County Roadway Consortium, which meets monthly. Dennis Bailey is our commissioner for this designated area. I would encourage you to discuss with him your concerns, which I think are valid. He has the ability as a member of that consortium, as is the city of McLendon-Chisholm. But as long as it's a Pullen Road that section of Pullen Road is still in the county purview, correct?
Correct.
Is that okay? And so you're going to have to, unfortunately, you're going to have to weave together, right, a couple of different dialogues. I know the developer has made great strides to address a number of issues. Ms. Ventura can address those and explain it, but I know at some point there's limits to what they can do. This is more on the state, and we recently passed a pretty hefty road bond for the county, so certainly there would be for the appropriate priority projects, there's going to be funding available. And there is an individual that's employed by the county that is representative to TxDOT that can argue the case. So, I don't know, Mr. Crowley, if you wanted to add to that, but that would be my approach. to
I think you
recommendation.
stated that well, Commissioner.
Yes, Mr.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I can go back to the fire turnaround thing for just a second. I just pulled up our subdivision regulations. And section 10.03.007, street arrangement, subsection B, says cul-de-sacs shall not be longer than 2,000 feet from the nearest intersecting street and shall provide a turnaround having an outside roadway diameter of at least 80 feet. So it seems like our subdivision regulations already have a standard that is nominally the same as what they propose in the development.
What was the maximum length of a dead-end street?
So I'm confused. Now you have me confused, unfortunately. So, section 10.0, or 10.02.006 is not 45 feet? Did I read that wrong?
I'm looking at 10.03.007.
It's kind of like the Bible, you can find whatever you wanted to support your cause.
Perhaps our subdivision regulation contradicts itself.
Well, I
Okay.
mean, I'm just looking at 10.02.006A7 that was in the next item that we're not looking at. And A12 says turnarounds, minimum right-of-way radius of 60 feet and a pavement radius of 45 feet.
Yeah, maybe that's where he got it.
That's my reference.
Like I said,
Okay.
I'm reading this just a different section.
No, I understand.
Yeah.
Do our codes say two different things in two different sections, is what you're telling us?
I'm telling you that that is what it looks like to me.
Thank you for pointing out the flaws in our subdivision regulation in this meeting. Okay, any further comment from the commission? Okay.
So-
I will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the application of MC Trilogy Texas LLC for a change in zoning from agricultural to planned development district for 2 tracts of property. Tract 1, 109.907 acres north of FM 550, generally east of Pullen Road, and Tract 2, 69.143 acres located north of FM 550, west of Pullen Road, and further described as county ID numbers 12-959 and 12-960.
Need a second.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, item 6.1 carries. I believe that item 6.2 has been pulled from our agenda. Okay. Then we will jump to thank you very much. Item 6.3, review and consideration of guidance provided by the recently adopted comprehensive plan related to policies and ordinances potentially affected by the adoption of the 2021 comprehensive plan. Mr. Kippett, do you have a presentation or discussion that you wanted to
I had a
start?
discussion, yes.
Okay.
I just want
You
to,
gotta find it.
give me a second. I gotta
Absolutely.
locate my notes to make sure I'm completely correct in my discussion. Okay, 6.3. So with the adoption of the comprehensive plan, it has, as highlighted in the staff report, a chapter 6, which is implementation and monitoring. And within that, there are 10 specific planning and zoning actions that fall into the short-term actions. There's a few others as well. Predominantly, these would be around ordinance review, subdivision regulations, zoning, to make sure the ordinances for the city match what is occurring within the comprehensive plan. So I seek guidance from staff on how to best do that, but I would like to see us adopt because by next summer, based on, again, the comprehensive plan, we have to certify back to city council recommended changes, et cetera, to the comprehensive plan. So this would give us a good start to identify any of those, as Mr. Coker highlighted, potential inconsistencies that might exist within ordinances to address, or any other changes. You know, comprehensive plans aren't perfect documents. Maybe a change. So that was the motivation I had for the item, was so I asking tonight would ask staff to consider undertaking, Mr. Crowley, Mr. Coker, to review that, look in our next meeting, right? We come back for our next meeting, that we would have an actual, you know, a way we will achieve what that desired outcome is, which is a review of the ordinance. And I know there's a couple different ways for that to happen.
I think there's several different ways to do that, and the comprehensiveness of that review would be, there's several variations of that as well. My recommendation would be, if you want to propose that you, based on this item, consider a motion to the council asking that they direct us to do that, and I think that would be the best way to do it. We can have a lot more priority placed on that item if you will make your recommendation to the council, and then them to us would be my recommendation.
So you need me to make a motion?
I think that would probably be a good idea, Commissioner, and while we know when you adopted a new comprehensive plan, you need to look at that at some level. It is a completely reviewing a subdivision ordinance or a zoning ordinance for the future it is a very large project, and similar in scope to the plan itself sometimes. So I don't personally have any idea how much conflict there might be between those, but we can take some look at it, but it might achieve a more comprehensive view of that if you made that recommendation to the council.
Thank you, because there are things within the comprehensive plan we specifically wrote in to beef up preservation of green areas, floodplain, green belts, et cetera, you know, trees, a tree mitigation policy, a number of efforts to maintain the rural look and feel that we have here in McLendon-Chisholm. Obviously, we heard tonight, you know, we are going to have development. So the question is to make those developments work for the best outcomes for the citizens of McLendon-Chisholm. That would start with ordinance.
And to make those kind of things have the legal teeth that you probably would like to see them have would require the passage of an ordinance or a law to give that substance.
And so, okay, so I think we understand that. So I'm not sure of the exact motion, so I'll just make one up, and then I'm open to amendments. I make a motion that we advise City Council they should undertake a review of existing ordinance with respect to the comprehensive plan, and deliver back a recommendation on a way to move that forward quickly, and what that plan would look like to do that, how to accomplish the review.
Commissioner, I think that's a fine motion.
So,
Can I get a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion or amendments that you guys want to suggest or anything?
I
think
just-
it's fine,
No, just as discussion. So the note in our implementation plan noted the revision of the ordinances is a midterm project, and then there's some other shorter term projects. So are we asking in this motion to have the city council direct us to look at the mid, short, and long, and they're going to make the plan to address these things, or we're going to make the plan?
Well, I went, and so I don't know exactly how to do it, we can have a discussion around that.
Yeah.
When I went through it, I counted, like I said, counted 10 short-term actions, meaning things to be completed within the next 3 years by the plan, that would set standards for typical developments, that create an economic development policy and strategies, that establish a set of tools with the city attorney where the city can utilize in negotiations with developers, formally,
Oh, the
that one
city
doesn't
slogan,
count.
yeah.
Rezone areas of the city with standards to develop in detail to be consistent with a future land use map or future land use plan and a vision. So there's a number, like I said, and then there's revise the subdivision ordinances to require, a number of items. I mean, I think the plan lays out specific things that, as we went through the planning process, thought we needed to be addressed. So it doesn't necessarily have to be there's a smaller subset of ordinance actions. But I do believe we also need to have a review of the ordinance to identify. And I know there's firms that the city has engaged in the past that do that. And I know within the budget this year, there's money put aside for this type of activity. So but to Mr. Crawley's point, if we don't ask council, I'm not sure that they will necessarily, immediately take action on it.
Well, I think they do rely on the Planning and Zoning Commission to bring those matters up for them to consider. I'm not suggesting that they wouldn't otherwise, but I think they would happily receive recommendations from them. Is what your role is.
Yeah, okay, yeah, no, that was just a discussion, but I think
Okay. No, I
we
think that's
voted on
good.
it already, didn't we? Yeah.
No, we haven't voted on the motion yet.
Oh, wait, I thought we did. I thought you said aye. And you said any questions?
He
Okay.
seconded.
Oh, he
And then I
seconded it,
said, do
okay,
need
and
to-
we gotta
yeah.
vote, sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay. Okay, so we'll go ahead and vote on the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that carries. Okay. That is the last item of business before I adjourn. You mentioned a December 16th meeting, but was that only if we didn't take action tonight? You had mentioned our normal meeting date is December 16th, but did we only need that if we didn't complete business tonight? Or do we need to have a December 16th?
We do
meeting?
have something for that agenda. We have the approval of an amendment to the SUP permit for Providence Academy.
Okay, so it should be quick. Does December 16th work for this group? I realize we're quickly coming up on the holidays. The holidays.
Yeah, there's an American Legion meeting, but I can get it right. Yeah, I can be here. It's 7 p.m., right?
No, on the 16th, yeah.
Yeah.
That's 7.
So far.
It's 7. And I should not have children conflicts, so I should be able to be here as well. Okay, so we will go ahead and set the next meeting for December 16th, or keep the meeting, December 16th at 7 p.m. Okay, with that, can I get a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All right. With that, we will adjourn at 8:13.
I will move right home now, because
Yeah.
tennis